Hello, and a big yo-ho to all my JoBros, JoHos, JoFos, and especially the JoNos. My name is AJ. I will be your Josis, and this is your JoNo, Mr. AJ. Honey, how's it going?
I'm fine. How are you?
Pretty good, especially because tonight we watched episode 4 of Phantom Blood, Overdrive, and I may state for the record that I like my Joe Bros like I like my coffee. Italiano.
That's Italian love, sweet Italian love. When you kiss your pet and it's like a spaghetti, that's Italian love.
So now I really feel like we're entering the era for me. Before we start talking about tonight's episode, do you want to tell me your overall impressions?
I like Yoda Zeffirelli.
Zeppeli.
Yoda
But you're right. He is Yoda Zeppeli. Or maybe Zeffirelli. That is not who he's named after, but I wouldn't be surprised if Zeffirelli wasn't an influence in the way that that name is constructed, because that is exactly how JoJo names work. Anyway, we'll get to that.
And Winchwood Funky Town is like the tunnel to that. Was like Dagobah. That's my.
That's very interesting. One thing that I was struck with, just like as an overview, it felt a lot faster paced than last week. Would you agree? Like, we covered a lot of territory in 22 minutes.
Yeah, definitely. And poor old Eleanor. She's not around. She doesn't do very much, does she?
No.
She's just there being.
This is why when we were first talking about potentially doing this, and I was coming up with fate or free will, nature or nurture, another big question I had that I think applies to the JoJo verse is bros or hoes? And I feel like we get a very particular answer in this episode. Anyway, so I kind of have this urge to say previously on JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, but I don't need to because our friend Speedwagon does it for us. The episode
Mr. Ario exposition.
Austin, we won.
Oh, groovy.
Yeah, he really is. That's his job. He is there to love JoJo and tell the audience what the hell is going on. And he does both so well. We open and he's standing outside this hospital. Our friend Speedwagon is blogging about how JoJo has lost everything. His father is gone. His home is gone. It's kind of hinted that his money is gone, but I feel like we never get total clarity on that. So how is he going to muster the will to live?
Just insurance people. Just do it.
you think
you've got a big pile in the country? Insure it, for heaven's sake.
You have to insure it. I mean, I feel like yes. And actually, I found out something.
This podcast is sponsored by the insurance industry.
Yes, specifically by the ones based in Hartford, because that's my stomping ground. So he's thinking, how will my dear friend go on? I'm going to go in, and I will give him a reason to live.
Now, the Ellen is there, not doing very much. He's just mucking around with a bowl of water.
How can you say that?
Oh, poor old Eleanor. They must have gone to cartoon casting and gone, hey, do you want to just float around and be pretty?
Yeah, it is really unfair. But I'm
sure she'll become more important as the series goes on.
Speedwagon is, well, it's kind of, the English teacher in me compels me to point out this little metaphorical moment. Speedwagon has just said he needs something in this dark moment. And he's creeping down this long, dark hallway to go see JoJo. And then there's a single ray of light coming from under the door. And he looks through the door, and there is the ray of light in JoJo's life, which is Erina. She is there looking exactly the same as she ever did, except, I guess, like sized up a bit in height and maturity. And she is cooling JoJo's burns with a wet cloth. And Speedwagon can see that she's been doing it for such a long time that which I really relate to as someone who has her hands in water a lot of the day, they're cracked and bleeding from how long she has been doing this. And in this moment, babe, Are you surprised to see that our friend has come back? Were you expecting her to come back? Because she's been gone a couple
Oh
episodes
yeah,
now.
she's in the credits.
She is in the credits, that's true. But I think it's just baby Erina, like
Yeah,
when
no,
Dio kisses her.
there's a lack of female interest in it. So
Yes.
I was expecting her to
You were
come back.
expecting her to come back. Good enough. And where do you think she's been all this time? Because the comics actually answer this. And I'm just curious, do you think she's just been avoiding him? Has she been staying with relatives after the Dio kissing scandal?
Or maybe she's become a nurse.
She has become a nurse. That is true. But she actually has been
What else would she be doing in this
in a
hospital?
hospital. Well, actually,
She just randomly rocks up to the hospital and
if
goes, "Oh, look, what a
I'll
coincidence!
be
I fancy seeing you here."
if you remember from episode 1, which I wouldn't expect anyone to do, it is actually stated when she's introduced and she's being bullied by those boys that she is rich Dr. Pendleton's daughter. So she is a doctor's daughter. And in the comic, we find out that she's been gone for 7 years living in India where he's been practicing, which I feel like is a little bit more of, a little Anglophile touch from Iraqi, because I do think he really thinks a lot about England, even though this is, as we've said, it's not like real England, it's Judge England, but he's thinking about like the real history. So, sidebar. I don't want to go too far off piece, but just briefly, because the relationship between Erina and Speedwagon is to me one of the most interesting relationships in the JoJo verse. When they first meet here, Speedwagon looks at her and says, "Oh, wow, she can cheer him up way better than I can." Exit stage left. In the comic, they actually have a little confrontation where Speedwagon demands to see JoJo and Erina refuses. And Speedwagon gets really mad and says, "Oh, she's a fancy upper class lady. She thinks she's better than me. Rah, 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 rah." And he decides that he's going to come in through the window and see JoJo anyway. And that's when he sees that scene. And in that moment, he realizes, oh, she really does love him, and sneaks away like he does here. But it's interesting that for Dio, it always comes back to money. And for Speedwagon, it always comes back to class. And I think that that is just something to bear in mind with that character going forward. And it's also just interesting to see that there is the potential for rivalry here, even though he is really gracious about it and is like, oh, never mind. So JoJo wakes up. He recognizes that this is his childhood sweetheart, and she is so happy that he's awake again. She starts crying and faints. And then JoJo, despite having a broken arm, I think he's supposed to have 2 broken arms, in fact, he catches her. And honey, in this moment, does this feel like just ridiculous to you, or do you think it's some kind of foreshadowing, or what's in your mind as
I have to say, at this point, I kind of thought I thought he had badly burned arms, which is doesn't makes it a little easier, although still exquisitely painful. I didn't get that it was broken until they said, "Oh, you caught me with a broken arm," and then I went,
Yes.
"That's quite impressive."
It is impressive. They should probably have established it first.
The whole. I felt. I mean, I felt. My entire thing about that was a good episode, but Eleanor's the treatment of a cartoon character, insofar as you can feel sorry for a cartoon character or an anime character. I felt very sorry for Eleanor because she just had nothing to do except sit around and be pretty.
Gentlemen.
100%. It
was,
sucks. This is why we're married to each other. But anyway, so when I first watched this, my thought was, this means something. I don't know what it means, but like, he is the son of Jor-El, essentially. Like, this is foreshadowing that he is, in fact, a superhero. And then I'll just point out one more thing in this scene, which is, so JoJo catches Erina, and she says, as you say, you caught me in your broken arm. And he says, "You caught me long ago." And I really love this moment because there is that concept of Flanderization, which can happen within the show or within the fandom, where a character starts out with yes, he has this characteristic, like Flanders being super nice on The Simpsons. And then it gets amped up and up and up. And I think within the fandom, people tend to amp up and up and up what a good boy Jonathan Joestar is. And he is a really good boy, but I would like to advance the theory that he is also a boy. You know, he has a line, he's Mr. Smooth. He is definitely very interested in this lady in a way that is more than gentlemanly, in my opinion.
Well, of course, that's the point of it, isn't it? It's like, if she's not going to do anything else, I mean, that's, you know, it's sad, but it's truth. You know?
Well, she's not going to do anything other than what?
Sleep with them. I mean, it's just, I mean, that's where it's going. It's depressing, but it's true.
She could marry him and they could, like, make love. It doesn't have to just be sleep with him. It could be like they build a life together.
Yeah, one is the same thing, just gets you get a certificate.
Wait, what did you just say?
So anyway, let's leave all this mushy stuff and go back to Whitechapel where things are really happening. It's dark, it's murky, it's icky, it's gross. And Jack the Ripper is doing what Jack the Ripper loves to do, killing some poor, unfortunate lady of the evening. And as he is killing her, who should rock up but a mysterious figure in a purple hood and wheelchair? And he says, hey, good job not being shackled by the fear of your own evil. And unfortunately, the subtitles spoil who this is because they say Dio, : ...
Well, of course it is. I mean, it's. I knew that anyway, even before the subtitles came out. Yeah, it's like, you know, ever since the sort of the end of the last episode, unless
you've been wondering.
I mean, well, when he was going to come back. I mean, the only time that hasn't happened, when something like that has happened, is at the end of the Flash Gordon movie in the early '80s, where they never made any others, and it was like, you know, there was like, ha 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 ha, Ming the Merciless, he's still alive, but they never got round to making it. They never made any. There's a whole story about that. There are documentaries about it, but
that is a really classic reference. Well, that's a good pull.
That's right, I know.
That's why you're here, because I have heard about that. But
I'm here because you couldn't find anyone else.
Well, you're here because I want you to be my JoBro, honestly. And Pixie said no. Anyway, Dio is really, in this moment, looking like somebody to me. And I actually, this is honest, I can't figure out who this look is modeled on. I was thinking, is it Dr. Doom? Is it the bad guy from Inspector Gadget? Is it Magneto? Skeletor? Did it ring any bells for you? Like,
no, not really. I mean,
he looks like somebody to me, but I can't. Hey, folks at home, if you know who Dio looks like in this moment, if you wouldn't mind leaving it in the comments, that would be great.
And if you could pop over and just entertain our dog.
Yeah, that would help too, because she is really bored and she is really up to no good. Hold on. So he's in a wheelchair. He's being pushed by Wang Chun. And in this moment, Jack the Ripper really doesn't have a chance to have very much of a reaction, because Dio, having congratulated him on being so evil, eye zaps him with his laser eye. I'm sure that there's a name for this, but I cannot remember what it is. And says, become my servant. You've no further need for free will, which I think is really interesting in the ongoing fate versus free will discussion. And at this point, I am wondering, as when I was a new viewer, what is he doing? Because he's not sucking his blood. Did you have a similar reaction, or?
Yeah, no. I mean, no. I didn't really notice. I mean, clearly it's a better system than having to push a mask in someone's face every time you want to.
It is, and that was going to be my follow-up question, because I think that after that he is sucking his blood. I don't know, it's kind of implied. I'm not really sure, because they pan away over the rooftops and you just get menacing sound effect hiragana stuff. But
I mean, he's chosen somebody who was already not exactly an outstanding citizen in any event. I mean, it's like, you don't really, you know, it would have been, It didn't have to be Jack the Ripper, who actually, I have to say, he would look like the most well-fed, well-nourished, healthy,
Yeah.
buff, working out, clearly, having certainly not a sort of waif-like creep that I
Yeah,
previously had expected.
The Kosminski theory
Well,
that
not
he's
even
like
him, but
some schizophrenic.
any of the so-called suspects. I mean,
Yeah.
Kosminski's. I think that he's more likely than any of the sort of like the
But
crap they come
there
out
is
with,
the
like
alternate.
Walter Sickert and
I was about to say there's
Prince
the
Albert,
alternate school. Yeah.
which is nonsense. But even then, they're not
They're not going to be working out.
they're not they're not big buff people with ginger beards.
Well, the ginger beard part we will never know. That part's lost to history. Now, Jonathan has found his soulmate in sweet, boring Erina. And Dio, could we say, has found his soulmate in a way in Jack the Ripper?
Not really. I think that Jack the Ripper is a henchman.
More than a soulmate? I mean, but if we think about what
I
we were
don't
just...
think Ellen is a soulmate either. I think she's a prop.
Yeah, there we go. I was just about to say, if we think about how JoJo is treating her, is she not, in effect, a henchman?
Silver, you're still my henchman. And you've become my henchman too, Silver.
She is there to help him get better, So at least within the plot. I mean,
Well, she's not even doing that, is she? The next person who does that is Yoda Zeppeli.
Yeah. Speaking of which,
who now rocks up and has the Force or the Hamon.
The Hamon. Oh, so much. Yes. So let us leave Whitechapel, and once again we see this really strong contrast between it's dark, like it's nighttime, it's urban, it's dirty, and now it's the day, and it's the beautiful countryside where JoJo is sort of searching through the rubble of Joestar Manor trying to find the mask. And Erina is there holding his cane, almost like a dog bringing a stick, if I wanted to be a bit unkind. But let me emphasize again, I do love Erina, and I do believe that Araki writes great women. It's just, this is early days. And the editors expect a certain kind of storytelling for this kind of a manga, especially in this era. So as they're doing this and realizing the mask isn't there, yay! Baron Zeppeli, or Zeppeli, depending on how you say it, people say it both ways, is here at last. He is there, Yoda, eating a sandwich, wearing his extremely iconic black and white hat. And can I get your first impressions of this new character? Just like visually, you see him appear. What are you thinking?
This guy's interesting looking dude in the show so far. The rest of them, I mean, that's like a lot of them. I find. I mean, if our dude hadn't got blue hair, I'd struggle to differentiate him between him and Dio. And I think that yes, he looks like some sort of Doctor Strange esque guy, and he likes frogs.
I mean, you cannot go wrong with frogs.
I mean, Baby Yoda
looks a bit like a frog.
Frogs.
Oh,
if you've watched The Mandalorian,
some of us have, and some of us haven't yet in this house. It has to be admitted. But yes, he is so cool. And this is Will Zeppeli, aka Baron Zeppeli. I've said he's not named after Zeffirelli, although I am wondering now if that was an influence. Do you know who he might be named after? Zeppeli?
I have literally no idea. Sorry. No, I mean, you're asking. I don't know much about prog. I like to think I know a bit about music, but prog rock, I've kind of
it's a whole weird area.
There was a guy. There was a prog rock band called Soft Machine, which about 20 years before I was born came from my hometown in England. In fact, the lead singer Robert Wyatt went to my school. He's one of our most prominent old boys, but. I don't know a lot about prog rock. It's
totally fair. It is. It's a niche.
I grew up listening to sort of the well, not punk, post-punk, which was a bit of a reaction against prog rock.
Robert Smith is the greatest person that ever lived.
Our savior.
So yeah, no, I've got a feeling that
Okay,
prog rock
it's
is
fine.
gonna
It's a
be
really
good.
obscure. It's an obscure band. You won't have heard of them. They're called Led Zeppelin.
Well, that's not. I know who Led Zeppelin are, but that's not prog rock. That's
Well, Google begs to differ, but
oh come on,
it is.
but Led
It is
Zeppelin aren't
apparently.
prog rock.
It's apparently considered contentious whether they are or not. But
It doesn't sound like Zeppelin.
Zeppeli.
Yes, but there's no N on the end of it, is there?
No, because he's Italian. But anyway, you're right to notice that he has a very unusual character design, and in fact, Araki took a huge risk with this because having that pencil thin mustache that he does was quite a challenging look for shonen manga. It was read as making the character look too mature, which is weird because he is an older man, but that's what the interviews say. And it also read as untrustworthy. There's like a snake oil salesman kind of thing to it, which I do kind of see. And that mustache was in fact inspired by Salvador Dali, which I think is interesting. And also, and this was something that I learned in my research just this week, by a character named Iyami from a 1960s comedic manga called Osomatsu-kun. And in that comic, which was very popular at the time apparently, and it must have inspired all of the like quintessential quintuplets type things that came after. This character Iyami was like the breakout star. He was a teacher and a trickster and a character who likes to pretend that he is things that he's not. He pretends to be French, for example, which kind of has a parallel to the Italianness, like a Romance language thing. But anyway, it is clear that this guy is like, for me, when he's on screen, I can't look at anyone else, essentially. For me, he is kind of the breakout season 1 good guy character. As you mentioned, he's there eating a sandwich, being totally chill, and he jumps into a punch, a one-finger punch, which I feel like is kind of some sort of Bruce Lee adjacent 1-inch punch, or maybe fingers of death kind of a thing. It's very cool.
He punched him to make him breathe properly.
That's right.
Yeah. Why don't you just teach him some nice breathing exercises?
Well, he doesn't have time.
Punching somebody in the chest to provoke good breathing is quite the...
I mean, it is literally what Zen masters do when their students are meditating. When they feel like they're close to attaining enlightenment, they come up behind them with a plank of wood and whack them. And the shock of it is supposed to help you achieve enlightenment. So there's a lot going on here with like Buddhism and also, oh God, the word just went right out of my head. Jeez Louise, Taoism. Yikes. I do know this.
Do your research, honey.
I did my research.
Uh-huh.
But it's all right, Tix. But yeah, so he does this little one-finger punch with I think his pinky. And Erina, of course, is very angry and protective. Oh my gosh, why are you hurting him?
Do anything, does she?
I mean, she's a well-brought-up Victorian girl. What's she going to do in this situation? And as JoJo takes his big breath after having the air sucked out of his body, everything sort of turns dark in kind of what I think is a callback to when Dio puts the mask on. But instead of it being all weird, hot topic, psychedelic rave colors, it is shiny, happy, My Little Pony rainbow colors. And I would make the argument that, like Dio becoming a vampire, this is JoJo kind of changing his state of being from human to something that's maybe a little bit superhuman. And then he introduces himself. He says he knows about the mask. He knows that Dio has it and he's still alive, and says, "Follow me and change your destiny." And I think that this is an interesting contrast to Dio meeting Jack the Ripper and just saying, "You don't need free will." What do you think? Am I reaching too hard?
Yeah, I mean, yes, no, I hadn't made the connection. It's
That's
interesting.
it.
I'd have to dwell.
I don't know. It
You just
just
throwing it
it's
out there.
I'm just throwing it out there as something that I was thinking about. I hadn't thought about it before, but I just noticed the echo of the color change and then the color change and then the glowing colors and the glowing colors. It's a thought. Um, so then Zeppeli starts explaining that yes, this is Hamon, which is created by ripples, which he demonstrates. He wades into the water and we watch the ripples go out. And then, of course, we have that iconic moment of the frog sitting on the rock, and it looks like he's going to karate chop the frog, which he actually does, but the Hamon energy passes through the frog, shatters the rock. It seems like this was a moment that sort of stuck in your brain because you mentioned it. Was it an effective moment for you?
Yes, I think so. I think I wasn't worried for the frog. I think the frog looked too cute to be killed.
He was super
Um,
cute.
so yeah, it was a nice looking frog. He didn't seem he seemed pretty chilled about the whole thing. Except you got to say that it's probably his favorite. That rock's probably his favorite spot.
Oh, oh
It's like
no!
it
Now,
was
like JoJo, he's lost his home
well, I don't know. He probably didn't live there, but he probably just went there to hang out
to
during the
hang out.
day and just watch the
Poor
world go
guy.
by. And then some weird dude with a top hat and a Salvador Dali mustache decides to split his
To
favorite
smash
chair in
it.
half.
But it is the frog is an interesting thing because would it shock you to know that there is a semi-serious school of thought that JoJo's Bizarre Adventure isn't really about JoJo and the Joestars? It's actually about that frog and his descendants because frogs keep coming back all throughout JoJo. And my theory, again, is just like random idea. It's because frogs metamorphosize, and that is such a heavy thing going on in JoJo. It's about like coming into your full adult self, reaching your full potential, growing, changing environment. It's again just throwing it out there as thought. And then oh yeah, I put in a little sidebar about Hamon that I forgot to say, which is just for interest. The word Hamon literally means ripple. I've already talked about how the ripples in the water reflect the Hamon energy. And it is also the wavy lines that you see on the blade of a katana sword. They have wavy patterns called Hamon that are part of the sword. And also, when I first watched it, because I had been picking up on all the pop music stuff, I honestly thought, oh, it must be for Michael Jackson when he says, Hamon. And then later I realized it's more of a Shamon. But I'd like to believe that somewhere in there is the idea of it being a little bit of a Michael Jackson callback. And Araki also said that part of his motivation was to find a way to make an invisible power visible, which I think is quite cool and interesting. If you think about something like the Force in Star Wars, it looks cool because it's in motion, right? Like you see the guy going and lifting up off the floor, or, you know, he's going like this and the guy is crumbling. But in a manga, a comic book where there isn't motion, seeing the ripple effect does make it more visually interesting. And if you compare it with Fist of the North Star, which, you know, quite rightly people point out was almost beyond an inspiration for a lot of Phantom Blood, it is more interesting than Kenshiro's kind of like killing you from the inside out. You're already dead, but you don't get to see it, in my opinion. Anyway, so having said all that, JoJo's arm is healed. They now understand that they both have to go find the mask, and JoJo is really upset, so he rests his hand on a nearby tree, which is bare because it looks like it's very early spring, and the tree bursts into flower, which I think is, again, like a really visually striking moment. And this shows to Zeppeli that when JoJo breathed in, he generated so much Hamon that it's like overflowing and going into the tree and like essentially, oh, it's Neo. You know, this is our chosen one. This is our Luke Skywalker, our oh gosh,
Harry
name your
Potter.
chosen one. Harry Potter. Yeah, this is the guy. Um, and Erina is standing there kind of worried and confused, and Jojo goes, "Oh, I can't drag her into this. You know, you could at least ask her first." But meanwhile,
Then she just vanishes.
yes,
That's it. She's gone.
yeah. And you know who else is using and discarding a woman? My man Dio, in a very literal way. He has just sucked some young anonymous maiden dry for her blood, and it's helping his wounds to heal. And he sort of goes, bleh, don't need you anymore. And he's doing like a pretty classic vampire villain monologue about how he's going to be the top of the food chain and humans exist just to serve him, and everybody in the world is going to kneel to him. And this, I think, is where his name starts really coming into its own, in that Dio means
God.
yeah, he's got a god complex. And in fact, way back, I think it was episode 2, when he's looking at the JoJo's books to try to figure out what that mask do, the caption under the picture of the mask at an Aztec temple says death of a god. And that is, in fact, what happens to our story. We have a god and he dies, and now he is truly trying to become a god. And he sort of says, you know, I've got Jack the Ripper. That's great. Now I need to go get some more people. And away he goes. And he's in this really cool looking castle. But at this time in the story, we don't know where it is or how he got it. And then we go back for one of my favorite things in any kind of movie or TV show, a training montage. I'm so excited. And we've got, again, we're outdoors, we're in the river. I am getting all kinds of greatest hits parallels to other training montages. Were there any that came up specifically for you, babe? With Zeppeli training Jonathan in the ways of Hammon?
Like I say, the Empire Strikes Back, I think.
Yeah, me too. That's the big one for me. Even in terms of the poses that he's doing and the way that he's balancing, I think that is direct visual reference. I was also getting a really strong flavor of Johnny and Baby from Dirty Dancing, practicing their moves on the log in the river, but maybe that's me. And also our dearly beloved Daniel-san on the rock doing crane pose in Karate Kid.
I have to say, I don't think I ever saw the first Karate Kid.
We watched it together.
Oh, okay.
But in fact, speaking of, Araki actually mentions Mr. Miyagi as being one of the characters he was drawing on for the Zeppeli character, along with basically every character Jackie Chan ever played, because he wanted him to be someone who is like this ingenious teacher who is also kind of crazy and seems like nothing he does really makes sense, which also, I think, strongly points to Yoda and that idea that when you meet the mentor, he seems like a clown and a buffoon, or maybe just like a little green frog monster. But then as you get to know him, you come to respect him. And I'm going to do just like a very short aside, which is the most important part for me of JoJo's Bizarre Adventure is the JoBros. That is what makes this a superior series. Like, there are lots of great heroes in this world. There are lots of great villains. But I am hard-pressed to think of another fictional world where the allies are this interesting. And in fact, I would say that this is my favorite kind of a JoBro, which is the mentor JoBro. Meanwhile, we have a different kind of JoBro, which is Speedwagon. How would you characterize him, do you think, babe? And if this is like too much, don't feel like I'm teasing you. If you think about how he interacts with JoJo.
I sort of looked at him as Robin.
Like Batman and Robin? Yeah, I could definitely see that, because he's like a little helper.
Well,
and he's very respectful.
Or maybe the ginger one out of Harry Potter.
It could be, except Ron in Harry Potter tends to get kind of jealous of Harry and be a little bit of a
Bucciarati.
which is one of the reasons I enjoy that character. Whereas Speedwagon, no matter what Jonathan does that we've seen so far anyway, he's just like, wow, you're amazing. So I would put him under the heading of like a cheerleader character, which is a great kind of character to have. And I'm curious, of the two at this point in the series, not knowing anything else, which would you say is the more beloved JoBro in the larger fandom community? What would be your guess?
Yoda Zeffirelli.
Okay, we will hold that thought and see where we land ultimately. Because yeah, I mean that is also my feeling. I just love Zeppeli so much. And speaking of, now we get his backstory. We find out that he has a lot of parallels to Jonathan Joestar. He was also an archaeologist. He also had a close relationship with his father. And when he was young, the two of them together went to explore these Aztec ruins. Baron Zeppeli, Will Zeppeli, this Zeppeli was the guy who found the mask. And on the way home, somebody on the boat decided to try it on for some reason, turned into a vampire, killed the whole crew, and then tried to kill Zeppeli. But as he was trying to kill him, the sun came up and he saw, oh, it's my father. So sad. And he crumples into dust. And at that moment, Zeppeli decided, even as the mask sailed away in the ship that was floating away without him, he was going to find that mask and destroy it, and that is going to be his life's work. Oh, and it's why he went and learned about Hamon. Does this work for you as a motivation to like dedicate your whole life to destroying this one thing?
He had a long time to do it
He did have a
before
long
the
time.
shit kicked off.
I think that too. I know so much of this, like you can't look too closely at
Doesn't stop
some
you.
things. Yeah, doesn't stop me. But and we could assume like he's been tracking it here, he's been tracking it there. At some point, he tracked it down to the bazaar where Mary Joestar said, "Hey, you know, George, that would look great on the wall of Joestar Manor." But it's interesting that he's so single-minded. He's dedicated his whole life to this, and I don't know. I haven't had anything turn a parent into a vampire and then they tried to kill me. Maybe I would dedicate the rest of my life to that in that situation. I don't know, but I was just curious if it.
Right, Sam. I think that the motivation is great. I just think he hasn't been very good at his job.
His job. That's fair. Right. So at this point, we get a little bit more explanation of Hamon. I won't like beat it to death, but it is worth mentioning a couple of key points. Number one, Hamon energy and the sun's energy are functionally the same thing. The sun destroys vampires, so Hamon destroys vampires. Number two, Hamon arises from the flow of your blood. A lot
Where
of
do the midichlorians come into
the
it?
midichlorians are not involved in this one. But a lot of people in the fandom think that it comes from your breathing. And it's like a
Well, yeah.
It is controlled by your breathing because your breathing controls how fast your blood might be moving and like your heart rate. But it is actually the power of your blood and not your breath, which is important because all of this has a very tantric side to it. It's this idea that when you put opposites together, they kind of become the same thing. Or if you go far enough toward communism, you wind up fascist and vice versa. It's this idea that everything is ultimately unified. So the vampires are feeding off of Hamon energy, but too much is going to be the thing that destroys them. They're two sides of the same coin. And in fact, that whole idea of Tantra and union of opposites is reflected in a number of places in JoJo visually, one of which is Zeppeli's hat. The black and white checks are this idea of opposite forces coming together in union. And have we seen that anywhere else in the series, babe? Can you remember?
Probably.
An iconic
Oh, it's on
checkerboard
the floor.
floor. Yes. It is. I don't even think that this was necessarily a conscious thing on Araki's part, because some things like yin and yang and tantric stuff are almost intuitive. Like, you can observe them in nature. It doesn't have to be that you plotted it, but I do think that there's something there. And we learned that the way that we use Haman is by taking controlled calm breaths. It can do all kinds of things. It can heal you. It can allow you to change the shape of your body, like when Zeppeli dislocates his shoulder to make his arm super long so he can punch. It can dull pain. It can be used for fighting, and it can be used for defense. And what do you think of that as a power system? Can you see advantages to it over other vampire lore that you're more familiar with from traditional vamp stories?
I think I'm going to have to watch this develop a little bit longer, because I think we were only 5 minutes away from the end of the episode at this point, and I hadn't really thought it through.
Yeah, no, but it'll be interesting to see how it plays. I think it's really, when you think about Buffy the Vampire Slayer, maybe my favorite TV series of all time, maybe. I mean, now I would say it's probably JoJo, but Spike likes to say to Buffy, you're always going to lose because you always have to reach for your weapon, meaning the stake. Mine are always right here, meaning his teeth. So I do think that it'll be interesting to see how having your weapon always already there comes into play through the story. Anyway, enough of that. Speedwagon's here to tell us, oh my gosh, I found Dio, and he is in a village called Wind Knight's Lot, where there are mysterious disappearances happening, and people are reporting a guy who looks like Dio skulking around. Okay, place name. Does Wind Knight's Lot sound like an England town to you? Does that sound like a place in England, I should say? Do you know of any places called Blot?
Called what?
The name of the village is Wind Knight's Lot.
I mean, there's a lot of weird place names in England. I can't imagine that there wouldn't be any. I mean, it reminded me more of Salem's Lot or.
Aha! Yes, this was where my leading question was going.
New England, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. So. It's not Old England; it's New England, and I haven't seen Lot over here as a place name, but I do know that in New England, Lot is not an uncommon place name ending, hence Salem's Lot. And I think I've mentioned Araki is a huge Stephen King fan, which is yet another reason why this is a show for me. But it's a great name for a place where there are vampires going on. And as you mentioned, we go through the tunnel, kind of a Freudian looking tunnel, if I'm honest, in the Black Coach of Doom, which I keep wondering, is this the same coach? Why don't they just sell this coach? I guess it can't be, because it got wrecked when JoJo's mom died. And we're driving along. JoJo's thinking, wow, life is so easy since I ditched Erina and didn't tell her why. And then all of a sudden, the carriage stops, and now we're in a live production of Equus. It's really quite upsetting. They get out, and all of the horses have been horribly mutilated, not to mention the coachman. One of the horses, I think just one of the horses' heads is gone. And who should pop out from inside the neck in kind of like almost a pun on a centaur, but Jack the Ripper. This was the moment when I was first watching the show, when I was like, oh, this is crazy. Like, am I on drugs? What is happening? Did you have a similar reaction, hon?
I mean, it was unusual. I'll certainly give you that. How did he get in there?
I think we have to assume that he got in by cutting open the horse's belly at some point, or maybe he came
When?
in from underneath. I
Maybe
think
he
when the
crawled
kid,
in through its
Anastasia.
being okay, it's trotting along with Jack the Ripper, like in its
yeah, in its
guts,
guts.
which
Yeah.
is quite the horse.
I don't think he was in there that long. I think we are supposed to infer that he did this. He was hiding in the tunnel, stopped, did this real fast because he is, as we're about to find out, he's not a vampire. He's a zombie, but he's one of those fast moving zombies.
Anyways, it's probably best not to look at that bit too
Don't
close.
think about it too hard. Yes. Oh no, we did talk about the zombie versus vampire, but this is the moment where it's confirmed he's not a vampire. He is actually a zombie. And I think it's interesting that Dio chose to make him a zombie instead of a vampire. Did we? I think you
Yeah, we
advanced a
spoke about
theory. Yeah, because he'd have too much free will. I think it's possible that Dio was actually a little bit worried that Jack the Ripper would be too powerful if he were a vampire. Because as Speedwagon says in this moment, like, I thought Dio was bad, this guy might be worse. And Speedwagon is in fact totally freaking out because, to go back to Buffy, Speedwagon is the Xander in this situation. He is clever, but he is just a guy. And we've got the fighter. You know, if this were D&D, Jonathan would be our warrior barbarian, and Zeppeli would be like our mage. And in fact, our spellcaster here is staying really stoic and pours himself a glass of wine, which I love so much in this moment. And Zeppeli decides to turn this moment into a little teachable moment for Jonathan. He says to always consider what your enemy is most advantageous to do. In this case, Jack blocks the exit to the tunnel so that the sunlight can't hurt him and the guys can't escape. Jack flexes and knives emerge from his body like a pincushion. It's a really cool effect, kind of reminiscent of Hellraiser, I would say, although I'm not sure if that movie had been made yet. It's something to look at while I'm editing. And then Zeppeli gives kind of one of my favorite speeches from this season, in which he tries to calm JoJo and Speedwagon down by saying, don't be afraid of this guy. It wouldn't be brave if a flea attacked a human, right? Because a flea isn't smart enough to understand that the human is big and scary. It doesn't have free will, so it can't have courage. All it has is hunger. But we as humans still have courage, so we have an advantage. And by keeping our courage and keeping our breathing calm, we can use our ham-on, and he knees Jack the Ripper and temporarily disables him. And I think that this, although he has told JoJo a couple of times through this episode that it's his destiny to join him, which is more fate than free will, I do think that this kind of establishes our good guy team as being a bit more on the side of free will, saying that like free will is the only thing that can give you true fighting spirit. And I think that that's kind of true. Like, if you're not making a choice, then you're not really being brave, like philosophically. So he gives JoJo a glass of wine and says that he has to kill Jack by destroying his head. And one more thing, he has to do it without spilling even one drop of wine, or Zeppeli will walk away and never teach him again. He'll abandon him. Does this feel harsh to you in this moment, or are you like, nah, this is standard
I missed
mentor
that
stuff?
bit. I don't know what I was doing at the time. Maybe I was looking at some of the visuals and not reading the subtitles.
I mean, there's a lot going on.
An awful lot.
Fair,
I mean, I got the bit.
So much
I
going
got
on.
the bit with the wine.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then it all kicks off again.
It does kick off again. But before he goes, he says another incredibly iconic line, which is, Zeppeli does. He tells JoJo, the Vikings did not exist in Norway until the North Wind created them. What do you take this to mean?
It means you need adversity to make yourself a big tough guy.
Do you think that that's true? Just like as a little philosophical aside, would you agree with that? Do
Yes,
you
it's
need
not literally
adversity?
true, but yes,
Yeah,
there's a certain truth to that.
I think so too. And I also, as a former teacher, I do think that you can lecture and lecture and demonstrate and have people go through like, what ifs and whatever, but until someone is actually doing the thing, they will never truly know how to do the thing. So thank goodness Jack the Ripper is here. And Jonathan goes down a side tunnel with his glass of wine to chase Jack. And he is a perfect student. He's perfect in everything he does, which is kind of the sticking point for a lot of people with this character. But he starts thinking, okay, what is advantageous to my foe? What's he going to do next? So he gets rid of the torch that he's carrying because it's making him a target. He stays brave. He studies his breathing. He's careful with his glass of wine. And then he sees the ripples in the glass of wine and realizes he's feeling the vibrations of Jack the Ripper like through his ham on. So he doesn't have to look for him. He already knows where he is. It's a very cool moment to me, at least. And then we get the most iconic line of this episode. My spirit trembles. My heart is ablaze. Ham on sendo overdrive. Which, again, when I listened to an interview with the voice actor, that was another one where the director made him take it over and over and over because it was so important. And then his ham on shoots out. Poof. In Buffy terminology, Jack is dusted. And Zeppeli tells Speedwagon Jay passed the test and became a Viking.
The Vikings, those cruel, heartless Scandinavian marauders whose savage brutality earned them the reputation worst human beings in history. I'm sorry about that.
JoJo poses dramatically, kind of like he did against the tree. And I ask you, we know that it's been a week since Jonathan and Zeppeli met. Do you feel like he got too good too fast?
No, because otherwise, we'd have like 2 or 3 episodes of him training, which would be really, really boring.
Oh God, I would love that so much. The only way that I would love that more is if it went on for like the entire series and one of them was blonde, because I love blonde guys. And then maybe if the other guy like wrote novelty songs like Danny from Ninja Sex Party. Can you imagine if there was a part like that? I would probably just fall down a fan fiction hole and you'd never see me again. But anyway, let's wrap it up with this week's questions. Official ending questions, which are for the audience at home as well as for you, my sweet. And my question number 1, which could be tricky, who is your favorite prog rock artist?
I got a bit of a soft spot for Marillion, which is really embarrassing. So maybe
No,
Fish.
there's nothing wrong. Okay. Next question. Who is your favorite metal artist?
Probably Iron Maiden.
Question number 3. What is your favorite Victorian profession or role? It could be like Lord of the Manor. It could be vicar, family solicitor.
I mean, it's I don't know, naval officer. I always think that. Well, I suppose the Victorian Navy wasn't very interesting, but I don't know. Yeah,
At least
maybe
you're less likely to get shot at.
I mean, Victorian Navy just went around, ferrying people from one part of the empire to the other, and that sort of. There weren't many sort of, apart from major.
It wasn't like Trafalgar was happening.
It wasn't
No
a very
armadas.
dangerous time for the Royal Navy in the Victorian era.
Yeah.
But anyway.
Okay. Number 5. What is a temptation you could not refuse?
Chocolate ice cream.
Okay. And number 6. What is a wrong that you feel you would be compelled to avenge, no matter what?
Oh God. If anybody does anything wrong, really, I'm a pretty. I don't let grudges go very
You
easily.
don't let grudges go very easily. It's so true. What, give me an arena, like professional, personal.
Personal, I mean, professional, you know, who cares? Personal, if somebody did something that harmed you or another member of my family, that would obviously be a thing. That was the answer you were looking for.
That was exactly the answer I was looking for. Well done. Okay. And question number 7. Would you rather be a vampire or a ham user?
Well, obviously, I want to be a Hound user. I don't want to
I
be. I
thought
don't
you would.
want to
I
be a
knew you
vampire.
would. I knew you would. Okay. With this information, I'm going to put together your JoJo's Bizarre Adventure Phantom Blood character.
Is there some app you found online that does
No,
this?
this is just your wife having some
It's like
fun.
one of those quizzes. I mean, you don't see them as much as you used to. But
I
what is
did.
your?
What is your Disney princess? No, I wrote this myself because in JoJo, usually the good guys in Phantom Blood era are named after prog rock or prog rock adjacent.
Oh, I'm going to end up being called Fish. That's
So
not fair. I don't want to be called
you
Fish. Right,
are.
let's think.
No, 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 it's
Peter,
too
Peter,
late. It's too late.
Peter Gabriel. Peter Gabriel when he was in Genesis.
You are Admiral Fisho, and you became a Hamon user after Dio slept with your wife. But he did kill her afterwards. Yeah, then you can kill him for that. So I'm going to do mine because I figured I'd pick whatever you didn't pick. And I was so sure you'd be a Hamon user, but I am going to be a lady novelist, but not just any lady novelist. I am what they used to call a yellow novelist, meaning I write risque things like Lady Audley's Secret or Aurora Floyd, the kind of scandalous novels that you don't let your daughter read. And my name, in Japanese at least, is Rita Fodo, after my beloved Lita Ford, because I have to be metal because I'm a bad guy. And because I am a bad guy, I get a temptation instead of a wrong to avenge. So my temptation is that Dio comes to me and says, I can make your dog live forever. And how can I turn that down? I can't possibly.
Look, yeah. Well, have you ever read Pet Cemetery?
I have more than once, but it's the 19th century, so no, I haven't. You know, I'm
all goes horribly wrong.
It does all go horribly wrong. I wind up as one of Dio's minions, and in fact, the way that I become Dio's minion is probably that my own dog vampirizes me. After I agree, yes, I'll do whatever you say, just make my dog live forever. But that's it. So folks at home, if you want to play, just remember, if you are a good guy, you're prog rock. If you're a bad guy, you're metal. If you're a good guy,
that's the opposite of real life.
It is the opposite of you are actually so right about that. But if you are a good guy, unfortunately, you have a wrong to be avenged. And if you're a bad guy, you have a temptation you can't refuse. So let us know down below what Phantom Blood character you would be and your profession, your Victorian profession. And having said all that, it is now time to deploy the secret technique. So ham on, JoBros, and I'll see you next week.